privilege of having Kevin Downs and Caleb Castille.
America needs this film right now.
You got to be a dead man to leave this movie and not want to be a better person.
Share the gospel clear and strong. Stand for, claim your heritage of truth.
Welcome to Heritage of Truth. Today we have the privilege of having Kevin Downs and Caleb Castille. Welcome.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Well, you are involved in a brand new movie called Woodlawn. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that movie is about?
Woodlawn is based on a true story, 1973 in Birmingham, Alabama, which is a time period where the city is still trying to recover from being torn apart by race. And it tells the story of the rise of the city's first sort of African-American superhero, and that is Tony Nathan. He's a running back that played for the University of Alabama and then went on to the Miami Dolphins. And it's about his high school experience, his junior and senior years, when that high school was swept up in the Jesus movement, and how the Jesus movement not only came across their team and changed and transformed their team, but also affected the entire city. Caleb plays Tony Nathan, and he does an amazing job.
Okay. Well, what attracted each of you to this project?
I think what attracted me to this project was, number one, the sheer bravery to tell a story like this right now in the time in our country. And also just the football, honestly. It was a chance for me as a young actor to do something that I grew up doing. And so, I wanted to be a part of it for sure.
And how about you, Kevin?
I'm a fan of sports movies. And so over my career, I've done 20-something movies, and I've yet to do a sports movie. And so when John and I first met, we met on the set of Courageous. He was doing, we had 2 units on Courageous, and he was directing one of the units and putting me through all kinds of torture for 3 months. But we got to hang out, and what we learned is we had a common vision about the types of films that we like. And so he heard at that moment that my dream was to always do a true life sports movie. And he goes, well, I happen to have one of those. And fast forward about another year or two, and I had pitched him Mom's Night Out. And so at that point, we started to get really serious about making movies together. And they were already developing Woodlawn at that time, because this was a childhood story for them that their dad had shared, as a bedtime story growing up. And so this story has been a part of their fabric, ever since they grew up. And so, transforming it into film, it was fascinating to watch them work, because it was so easy for them. Oftentimes, I'll watch and I'll see their brains just turning, and I'll go, this is like us eating a bowl of cereal in the morning. It was just that easy and secondhand, because they knew this story so well. What I love about it, though, is they took such special care to really interview the real people, and be able to adapt that into the screenplay and the story with the heart that's behind it is really it's a gift. I mean, it really takes a talent. That's not easy to do, but then to do it in the framework of this real life football movie in Birmingham, Alabama, that has Jesus all over it. Is a dream come true for me, and that's what attracted me to it. It has all the elements that I love in a movie.
Well, Caleb, what is the story behind your getting this role?
Well, that's definitely a God story. It's a complete blessing. Here you take a young guy who I played football growing up all my life, but I kind of had this dream inside of me that I wanted to do something different, kind of off the beaten path. My dad was an all-pro and an all-American football player. Both of my brothers played. So it's kind of one of those things that just, you think it just ran in my blood. I just always had this hidden passion for arts and theater and different things like that. And so I ignored it for a while, and then I got into college, and we had great success at Alabama. I won 2 national championships there, but I just didn't feel like I was fully fulfilling what God had for me. I just felt like He had even bigger things than that for me. And so I kind of just literally just took a leap of faith and left football aside after my junior season, after we won a national championship. And I was like, I'm going to give this acting a try. Because, I feel like he speaks to us, through people and through different ways. And so there were a lot of people who just like kind of kept putting the bug in my ear of like, you should try acting, or you should, do this and do that. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And I did. And a year later, after that happened, here comes Woodlawn. After a year of just doing the acting grind, auditioning, and turning down stuff that I didn't feel like was lined up with my morals. And so I felt like this movie coming along was just a direct answer from God of saying, like, you're doing the right thing. You're walking in your calling. So when it came along, I jumped on it. I believed it was mine. It didn't work out that way in the beginning, but I just kept believing. I kept trying to just humble myself, and then all of a sudden, boom, 3 days before production, I'm the lead actor in this huge movie. So,
to jump also on Caleb's story a little bit, I think
Okay.
Caleb's story is a good example of here's a young man that is trying to be obedient to what God has called him to do. And so often in that time of our life, I remember it vividly for me, like it was yesterday, even though it wasn't yesterday. And I had a similar situation where I turned down a role that was a mainstream role because I was wanting to be obedient with what God had. And less than a month later, I was cast in my first film that was a Christian film with David A.R. White called The Crossing, and that started everything. I mean, that then catapulted me to where I am now because I had no idea this could exist, where you could make movies that could not only impact people, but clearly change people's life. I mean, clearly change people's life. And that's exciting for me because film is such a powerful tool. It's a powerful medium, and why not use our gifts or what we believe that God has called us to do to really encourage, inspire, bring some healing, and have an impact to change sort of a course of direction on people's life if they so choose to bring themselves closer to God and learn more about Him and know that God loves them so much.
yeah.
Well, why don't you tell me a little bit about the other cast members?
First of all, I think it was God's plan and God's design for Woodlawn, or for Caleb to be in Woodlawn all along. Even though we took an interesting route to be able to get there, but he had. Caleb always had this design to be a part of it, but it wasn't clear what he was going to be and what he was going to do until about a week before we started filming. But we have an amazing cast in Woodlawn, from Sean Astin, who resembles and embodies the character of Hank in such a way that it's really fascinating to me. I mean, it's when I brought Sean out, Sean was a part of our proof of concept for Woodlawn about 3 years ago, and the first time I saw Sean and Hank side by side, I can understand why the Irwin brothers really wanted Sean Astin to be Hank, because they resemble each other so much. And they're thinkers. They're both thinkers. They really like to think through things. And I think that was very smart casting by the Irwins to have Sean in it. But John Boyd, which is amazing as Bear Bryant. I think it's one of the best characterizations of Bear Bryant ever. I mean, I know people would expect me to say that because he's in our movie, but you have an Academy Award winner and an iconic actor such as John Boyd playing an iconic real-life hero as Paul Bear Bryant, and he is really good in the film. We are fortunate to have him. That was no slam dunk or guarantee, but John, Mr. Voight, really was passionate about the material and really spent a lot of time on set with Caleb and the rest of us, and really dove into the world that we were creating with Woodlawn. And Nick Bishop was perfect casting for Tandy Gerald's. And as soon as Nick Bishop auditioned, casting was over. And I kid you not, it was that he was that convincing. And again, what I love about it is all of these actors went through this sort of process of loving the material so much and the concept behind what this movie is, that they went this extra step to really show themselves and be ahead of everyone else. And with Nick, the first time we laid eyes on him, I mean, Andy was so excited because, again, Andy Irwin knew exactly who Tandy Gerald's was and is and embodies. And when you see images of Tandy and the way Nick characterized him, it's stunning. It really is incredible. And so Sherry Shepard is awesome. She is hysterically funny. and really brings out the quietness of how Caleb portrayed Tony, which is not easy to do as an actor, and because he's not quiet.
Yeah, I'm not.
You know, and so our cast in Woodlawn is so good. They're just so talented, and I think it was. I think we're really fortunate and very blessed to have the cast that we have.
And how was it working with them?
Oh, I mean, it was great. Just from, for me, the only acting experience that I really held before this was just commercial and music video stuff. And so just for me, I think one thing that helped me was just having great coaches in my life. And so when I stepped on set, I just tried to just become a sponge. And because these people, I mean, I have combined experience, 500 years of acting. So it was just incredible for me. I literally learned in 2.5 months what some actors probably don't learn in 10 years. And I will describe John Voight as just like a Michael Jordan. He when Michael Jordan steps on the court, just everybody's game is elevated. And when he would step into a scene, it was just first of all, your respect for him. And I would just want to do my best. But there was not a pressure there, because he's such a kind and gentle man that he could get me to open up and get there fast, just because as an actor you want to get to where you want to be emotionally as fast as you can. So he definitely helped me through that. Nick was just like a brother to me, just on set, just making sure that I was always all right, that I was studying like I need to be studying and different things like that. It was just an honor to be with them. Lance Nichols, who played my dad, he was incredible. Joy Brunson, who plays my love interest, she's such a professional, just so classy. She's amazing. And just everyone around her, everyone that had a part in this was special to me. I feel like even having Kevin stepping in and playing and being a reporter, just how he can go from business guy to actor, just turning it on and off. So, he would come in from solving money problems to playing the reporter.
It was, the scene I had with John Voight was very interesting, because when we shot, it was a small scene, and a dream for me to act with an actor that caliber. And what we found out while we were shooting it is we didn't know who was more nervous, me or him. And I'm like, what do you have to be nervous about me for? I'm just like, wow. And I'm like, because my hands were almost shaking, right? And then when you get through the first couple takes, then you're over it, and you get into it. But it was such an honor to be able to act, in a scene with this man who's still got it and is so good. He's just so good. But yeah, we have a talented cast.
Wow, that's great. Now, wasn't there some sort of a family connection with the role that you played?
Oh, well, yeah. So Tony played also at Alabama, and he was a senior when my dad was an incoming freshman. So they've been buddies for, as long as.
And that's the character you played.
Yeah, that's the character I played, Tony Nathan. So that was definitely.
But not the reason why he was cast, which is interesting.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that didn't get me the job, unfortunately.
No, I think God has amazing timing for the reasons why He puts people, in certain situations.
Definitely.
Yes. Well, the story deals with real incidents that happened in 1973. There's a lot of racial tension and reconciliation, and it could have been a modern movie with all that's going on right now. Is this a film that you think can offer healing to society now?
I'll say yes, for sure. I think that history definitely repeats itself, and I feel like with this movie, it'll give people a chance to kind of do things right that weren't done in years before. And I definitely think people will find a lot of answers to a lot of questions after seeing this movie and taking in its message. And I think this movie just makes you ask questions. And I think that, you got to be a dead man to leave this movie and not want to be a better person.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating because in the last 12 months we're seeing things happen in a condensed amount of time compared to back in the late 60s and early 70s that happened maybe over a 5, 6, 7, 8, even 10-year period. And we're seeing them happen rapidly and fast and even at a greater level than what happened back then. And so the parallel tracks that we're on is you had a problem and then all of a sudden an answer was presented. And so what I firmly believe is there is an answer right now, and America needs that answer, and I believe the answer is coming. And I love the timing of Woodlawn because Woodlawn presents not only the problem, but it also presents the answer.
Now, there's a difference in the way you filmed the football scenes in this. Why don't you explain that to us, Kevin?
When John and I first talked about Woodlawn, John and Andy and myself first talked about Woodlawn, I'm trying to, as a producer, trying to wrap my head around, okay, what's your vision, what's your goal, and what do you want to do? And for a while, I'm like,
This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
But that's the beauty of their brilliance is the way that they do things they're different because they're not in a box, and so they have such a sort of off the cuff style of filmmaking, and you see that in Woodlawn where, we were in the edit bay, the three of us, and while we're making notes, I'm sitting back in my head going, wow, this is a really beautiful movie. And it's hard as a producer, it's hard to say that while you're still making the movie. It was the first time for me because we're close to locking the picture, and I sat back and I was just like, this is really good. This is really good. And so John's vision for the football was to dive in and make the audience a part of the game. And very similar as you see in comic book movies or superhero movies where you're a part of the superhero's experience and you're not watching it from afar, but you're inside their thought process as if you're the superhero yourself. And that was what John wanted to do, grab the camera, and he was doing things that was crazy, like you're going to get somebody killed or yourself killed, but he's just so good at it. I was explaining this to a friend not long ago that the football is so different that you don't feel like you're actually watching a football game.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's good.
You feel like that something else is going on, and so the football is a setting, but at the same time you feel like you feel the hit that just happened, and you don't have to understand football to appreciate the football that's actually in Woodlawn.
Tell me about the faith elements in the film.
The faith elements are very true and very real, and so what we try to do is just be honorable to the actual text, of what happened in real life. There are a few things that we told in a different way, or we condensed timelines down just to be able to make it into a movie. But the fact that this football team at Woodlawn High School in 1973 all converted to Christ, all but a few of them converted at one time, actually happened and is very real and is extraordinary. It really is. I could never imagine that happening at my high school growing up in a public setting. Not a private Christian high school, but a public high school like that. It would have been really, really interesting, I think, to be able to live through what happened at Woodlawn High School, especially because the school was so close to being closed down by the FBI and whatnot. And so the faith in it is very real. It's very personal. You don't feel like it's an outsider telling you about Jesus, but you feel like you're actually living through what these guys experienced and being impacted by Jesus himself.
And yet this film isn't just for Christians, is it?
It's definitely not for Christians. There's so many entry points into the film. It's not just a football movie either, and it's not just a movie for Christians, especially as it relates to today, I think, and Caleb can talk a little bit more about it, but as you see as what's happened in our news in various cities and just in our nation alone, you go, you know what, it's so interesting how Woodlawn and the issues that were present in the early 70s are there today, and they're happening and they're unfolding in our life. And I don't think it's an accident that Woodlawn was made for such a time as this.
Yeah.
John and I and Andy, we prayed last August with the help of a pastor who was on our team and prayed whether right now is the right time to make Woodlawn and to bring it to market. And even though we didn't have a script, we had an idea. They had the story. Again, it was a part of their fabric. But we believe that now was the time, and that this fall was the time for this movie to come out. Not in 2016 or 2017, but America needs this film right now.
Yeah.
And what do you have to say about all
I
that?
could agree 100% with that. I mean, I just feel like a lot of the issues that you'll see in Woodlawn that cities are facing today, you'll be able to see how these people in the 1970s allowed love to just come in and penetrate themselves, their school, the city. And I think that's the biggest key right now that people are missing, is that just there's so much hate. Everybody's offended by something today, and it's just, and I think that when you break it down, the common denominator is just loving each other, and that's what you see in Woodlawn. You see that blatantly, openly, that the love of Jesus can overcome any situation or circumstance. So I think that it's very prevalent.
Okay, well, is there any last words you would like to give to the audience?
Well, people need to go to the website,
Okay.
woodlawnmovie.com. If you want more information on Woodlawn, go on Facebook, like the Facebook page, just because we put everything on Facebook. Go on Facebook, like us, or go to the movie's website and register there and get all the information to it, because this is going to be an event that you don't want to miss. And it's an event that you can get your church and your small group and be a part of it and leverage the movie to be able to use it as a tool for your entire neighborhood in a way that's not like a tract, but in a way that's really socially relevant to issues that are going on today. And people have the opportunity to do that now and to plan ahead.
What's on the horizon for you? Do you have other plans?
Well, I definitely do. This has definitely been a blessing for me. I've seen opportunities open up, but right now I just feel like God has me in this place, in this space for a reason right now. So I'm just focusing a lot of my efforts on making sure that people understand the not only the importance of this movie, but just the importance of the message as a whole. So, I think that from this, a lot more doors are opened up. But right now, we're just trying to make this one a home run.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could say there was one message, like a soundbite, if you were going to describe this film, how would you do it?
Woodlawn's about hope and love. It's God wants us to understand what love is, and Woodlawn provides hope.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for being our guests.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Share the gospel.